Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2-Bit Circus Playful Learning stream. My name is Kate, and I'm going to be teaching you all the STEAM in theater. So whenever I get the privilege of joining everyone on the Playful Learning stream for an hour, I get to show you all the different elements of STEAM and how it plays into theater. But today, we're going to have an introduction to theater. A lot of you may not know what it is, or some of you may have an idea of what it may be. And theater is something that's always been a big part of my life. Now, when a lot of people think of theater, they often think of a building where a show is usually put on and there's a backstage area and some wings and the seats and the box office, all the usual things that you would often find in any sort of building where there might be entertainment. Now, that might not be the only definition of a theater, though. That might be a definition of just a theater space, as in a place where theater can be held. However, in my opinion, I think theater really only needs just one performer and one audience member. As long as there is somebody who is creating and putting on a show in front of you, and as long as someone, even if it's just for a second, is paying attention, then you've got a performance. So you might not necessarily have done a lot of theater as an elective or taken theater classes or maybe done some school plays, but you might have performed your own theater in your own space. Think about it. Think about any sort of talent shows you might have put on for your family, or performing a song for them, or even just saying a little bit of a speech or a poem. That's still a theater because you are still giving up some art for somebody to consume and for somebody to take in for themselves. So, theater can be held anywhere. It doesn't just need to be in a building that is called a theater, or a space that can hold a stage with a bunch of props and costumes. It simply can be just your house, or even your room. Maybe your theater is your room and you get to perform for, I don't know, your pets or your stuffed animals, or maybe the people that are around your house, the guardians that you have around you. So, today we're going to take a deep dive into that idea, and we're going to follow along with the history of theater starting at the very beginning, which actually starts with the ancient Greeks. And I'm going to show all of you a picture of what we believe a theater during this time would have looked like. So, as you can see, it is open air, and there are a lot of seats. They're almost in a semicircle, as you can see. And then there seems to be one big flat area in the back, which we can assume is maybe where they would put some set or something. And then there's the high above seats that are just a little further up than the what we call, usually today this would be called orchestra seating because it's the closest. So this might be more of the balcony area. And usually that was for more common, more of what people would consider commoners or people in the town. So not diplomats or dignitaries, nobody that was seen as super important in the town sat at that upper level, just those that were everyday men, just like people like you and I. And just so you know, we have about an approximate amount of time where we have recorded ancient Greek theater. So that was around 600 BC to 410 BC. And the first recorded form of European theater specifically began in ancient Greece, around 600 BC, as I said, with a religious festival to honor Dionysus, who was the god of wine and fertility. You might have heard of the Great Bacchanal. That was a party or a festival that was held for him You might have also heard the term Bacchus, which came out of Bacchanal, which all has to deal with this specific god Dionysus, who had a lot to deal with theater. So it was said that a poet during one of these great festivals for Dionysus named Thespis won the first ever dramatic play competition. And because he won that first ever dramatic play competition, we often refer to actors today by a word that you can clearly see that Thespis has a lot to deal with. Anybody recognize this word? Thespian? Well, a thespian is usually what we call an actor. Oh, there, you can see it now. Thespian. Haha, let me transition you all to my full screen. So, thespian, and that came out of the word Thespis. Or, sorry, came out of the name Thespis, who was that original playwright that won the play. So, thespian is from Thespis. Fun fact for all of you at home. And because he's also considered the first actor as well as the first playwright, as I said before, that's why we call actors today thespians. And Thespis also introduced the use of masks in Greek theater, and we'll talk about masks more next week when we're going to be creating our own masks. But today I've got a different project for you. And just so you know, a little later on, around 300 BC, Romans were inspired by Greek art, culture, and theater and wrote Latin versions of these Greek plays. So they were very prolific and they inspired a lot of different people. So let me show you what the different parts of the theater looked like during that time. I'm sure you're tired of staring at this photo. Let me give you a different photo. Here we can see, excuse me, we can see the outlay of the theater. So there's the teatron, or theatron, which is where the patrons will seat, the orchestra, where the Greek chorus was often held, and we'll talk more about the Greek chorus when we talk about masks. The parados, which are on the side, which are just exits on either side of the stage where the actors could have exits and entrances, which is super nice because everything is open air and they didn't have a backstage area or wings like we do today. And then there is the skene, and the skene is the back part of the theater where if they had the budget to and the ability to, then they would be able to put up some scenery or maybe possibly some bits, scenery, what is it called? Flats, that's what I'm trying to say. Flats that often had backgrounds painted on them. That was often what was left in the skene or put by the skene in the back of the theater. So in the very back would be the skene, or the background where the people, to help set the setting. In front of that would be all the actors. In front of them would be the Greek chorus. And then in front of those people would be the audience, which is not too far from what we have today. In a traditional theater today, we have the stage, which the actors play on, the audience area, which is where the audience sits. As I said before, it's delineated now into the orchestra seating, which is the lowest, the closest to the stage. Mezzanine, which is usually the area just above that. And then the top balcony area is usually where I often get most of my seats because they fit my budget a little bit better. And you can still get a pretty good view of the larger picture of everything, even though you might not get the finer details of people's faces. If you really want a great area to watch some awesome theater, I highly suggest the mezzanine if you can put it into your budget, because at that point you can see some expressions as well as the larger picture of the show. So you get the best of both worlds. It's super cool. So you may be wondering today why I've asked you all to gather some materials together. And it's because we're going to be building 2 different types of stages. Now, I'm going to show you first how to create the more DIY version of a stage. And I've already made one here to show all of you. Ta-da! It looks a little funny. It kind of looks like a cat right now. Kind of plain, nothing too fancy going on. And what I did is I took a piece of cardboard and cut it out into a rectangular shape. Now, you do want it more of a rectangle than a square, just so that you can have more space on your stage. And oftentimes, most of the stages that I've been on have been rectangular, unless they have been purposefully made into a different shape for a very specific reason. So once you have your piece of rectangular cardboard, you're going to cut out 2 flaps, as you can see right here. I should cross out this person's address. I'm sure they don't want that shared with everyone here. Should have done that earlier. Sorry, Judy. My bad. You're famous now. So as you can see, these little flaps right here, they're cut into half circles. So you can cut one big giant circle and then cut it in half. And what I did is that I folded that in half and taped it. You can also glue it to the bottom so that on the side, it looks just like this. And this sort of uphill look is what we call a raked stage. This is actually the original iterations of what stages used to look like. They used to be at a slight angle, which is going to help me explain how stage directions work for everyone next. So there was a slant here, so actors would have to climb up a little bit of a hill to get to the back of the stage, and then they would have to go downhill a little bit to get to the front of the stage, closer to where the audience is. Now, some of you may have heard different terminology for different stage directions before. Or you may have just heard people say, I need you to go up, down, left, right, and you might have been like, well, do you mean up as in forward, or do you mean up as in going up towards the back of the stage? Are you saying my left? Are you saying your left? Because your left is not my left. Well, this little diagram right here is going to help all of my friends out right now, I hope. So on this second version of a stage that I have right here, it is still raised, and all I did was I cut the lid off of the top of a box, and this was an easy peasy, super lemon squeezy way for me to make a stage. If you didn't feel like making a rake stage, or if you wanted it to be perfectly even, you can always find a rectangular shaped box. Your guardians may have some, the adults in your house may have some, based off of if they've done some online ordering, like yours truly right here. Or you may just have some boxes lying around. Just make sure to always ask an adult before you're using any sharp objects or cutting anything up they might need to use in the future. So before you use any boxes, make sure that you can use these boxes. So as you can see on my second example of a stage, I have stage directions on here. Woo! So this is typically what actors, directors, most people in the theater use as directions to not only tell actors blocking, but also to signify where certain set pieces may be, light, as well as all these other things. And an easy way to remember up versus down stage, in my opinion, is to remember our raked stage friend. Our stage friend that is at an angle right here. Taller at the back of the stage, and if I can fit it, yeah, there we go. And closer down to the ground, the closer we get to the audience. This is a little bit of a hyperbolic / exaggerated angle right now. Some rake stages can go completely vertical. I have seen hydraulic stages do that. Usually that's in some really awesome acrobatic shows or circus shows that I've seen. It is super, super cool when the stage goes from flat all the way to horizontal. Blows my mind all the time. But the easiest way, and I'm going to use the help of our little dinosaur friends here today, to explain to you the concepts of downstage and upstage. So, if I were to ask the T-Rex to go downstage, what way would you think I would ask him to go? Would he go this way? Or would he go this way? What do you think? Well, based off of what I said before, based off of our raked stage, the one at an angle, if I were to ask the T-Rex to go downstage, we would expect him to go down towards the audience. So if that helps you, if we're talking about downstage, you're going to go down the hill. So then, by that logic, upstage, if I were to ask Mr. T-Rex here to go upstage, he would go up the raked stage, up the hill, right? So, super easy, I promise. Downstage is down, closer towards the audience. Upstage is up, closer towards the back of the audience. Well, Kate, you might be asking me, what if I don't have a raked stage? What if instead I have a flat stage, like most modern stages today? Well, the concept is exactly the same, my friends. So, again, we've got our little T-Rex friend right here. T-Rex is going to go down, closer towards the audience. As you can see right here, I've written audience, to go downstage. Then, if he needs to go upstage, he will go up the stage towards the back of the stage, or upstage. So, upstage is towards the back of the stage. Downstage is closer towards the audience. Alrighty. Hopefully I have not lost any of you at this point. Now, we're going to be talking about stage left and stage right. So, stage left and stage right is based off of where the actor is facing. So, since the actor is facing the audience, like T-Rex is doing right now, going this direction would be his stage left. If I were to ask him to go stage right, he would go this direction. However, our other dinosaur friend, if he is directing T-Rex, needs to keep that in mind. That audience left, his left is actually stage right. And audience right, his right is actually stage left for T-Rex. I know that sounds super confusing, but let me try to explain it to you all. So, if I am an actor on stage and I'm facing all of you, my audience, this side, if I were to go this way, this would be stage left for me. If I were to go this way, my right, this would be stage right for me. However, if I was to direct you all, say Mr. T-Rex here in my hand, and I asked him to go stage right, he would actually go this way. And if I were to ask Mr. T-Rex to go stage left, he would go the other direction. So that's not my right and my left, that's actually his right and his left. So to reiterate all again, stage right is to the right of the actor, and stage left is towards the left of the actor. Let's try to write some cue cards together so that we can remember this all together. So, the first thing we talked about was downstage. Downstage. Downstage is going towards the audience. So, if this was the stage and these were my audience, the little circles, we would be going that way, downstage. Downstage is towards our audience. Next, we talked about upstage, which is the opposite. I'm running out of ink. How could this be? Upstage. Upstage is towards the back of the theater. So if we were to draw our little theater again with our people, that would be that direction. Upstage and downstage are opposites of each other. And maybe if my explanation with the dinosaurs didn't help you out, these cue cards might. Okay, now, stage left and stage right. Stage left and stage right. Stage left and stage right. That is the actors left and right. So, stage left and stage right is the actors left and right from the actor's perspective. So if you're looking out into the audience, that would be the explanation of stage left and stage right. All right, we're going to put that down just for a little bit, give our brains a little bit of a stretching break, and we're going to go on to a little bit more about Greek theater and the origins of theater. Now, I found a really, really wonderful website on, let me get up the right website for you, knowitall.org. It is an amazing resource. There are things broken down by grade, by subject. They have a wonderful piece on theater. And let me tell you a little bit of what they say. So, the word theater means a place for seeing. But theater is more than just a building where plays are performed, like we were talking before. It's the whole idea. So it's not just the space itself, but it's the actors, the directors, the costumers, the lighting designers, the crew members, the sound designer, the electricians, the house manager, the ticket sellers. All of these people come together and collaborate in order to make a theater. And it actually brings, surprise, surprise, all the elements of STEAM together too, because science is involved whenever there needs to be special effects on stage, like fog, for example. Then the technology aspect is an example of the hydraulic stage. The hydraulic stage can move different heights as well as different directions, like I was talking about before. So that's an example of technology in theater. E, engineering. Well, there's all sorts of engineering. You have to build sets, you have to build ideas, you have to build the theater itself and work with the acoustics in there. There is all sorts of engineering in theater. Of course, there's art in theater. I don't need to tell you all that. And math, well, if you don't make enough money in order to produce the show when you start selling tickets, well, you're going to start losing money instead of earning money. So there is a lot of math involved, not just for the actors when it comes to their paycheck, but also the people who run the theater, the people who sell the concessions, for those who are measuring out costumes for people, set pieces to make sure that it fits the first time, right? So that is an example of math in theater. And I want to get you all familiarized with all of these ideas, all in theater and film, because they are everywhere. And maybe I'll be able to show you something new, something different. Maybe you don't like math, but you might like the way that they use math in theater, and maybe that might be a better way for you to learn that subject. Who knows? Try it out. Let me know. As I said, just so you all know, there is a little bit of a difference between the name of a playwright, somebody who writes plays, and a screenwriter, somebody who writes something for film. So for script writing, there's playwrights for theater and screenwriters for screen, of course. Directors, and they supervise and block all the rehearsals, as I said, set designers, technical crew. Yes, I've talked about all of these things and how important they are to the theater and to give you the full true theater experience. That's what you're paying for. That's why you're going out to the theater. That's why you're not watching your streaming networks at home. You're going out because you want to see the splendor of a real life person existing in a fairy tale world in front of you. However, we're not really sure where theater began. It could have just been simply somebody putting on a very fun show for themselves and their friends one day. Or it could have been the Greeks who gathered together in groups to do a lot of storytelling. However, we can pretty much be sure of the fact that storytelling is at the heart of theater, because that was what the plays were about. They were created from stories or histories or any sort of special event that that group of people had, and they wanted to share that information, or maybe the moral of the story, with other people. And besides using their voices as one person to translate that story, they decided to collaborate with a bunch of people together to create a storytelling experience, something people could really feel inside. What they were looking for that you couldn't get with normal storytelling is the feeling of, I'm writing it down, the feeling of catharsis. That's what made acting and theater so much different than just plain old storytelling, was this feeling of catharsis, this feeling of togetherness and going through an emotion together, whether it be something joyful in a comedy, or whether it be sadness because something horrible and tragic had happened to their favorite characters. Either way, people were able to experience this emotional situation together and maybe learn something from it. So, Know It All has a little bit of history to a little bit of that background. So, they're stating here that, as I mused right now, the prehistoric hunters used to act out their stories about their hunting expeditions. Ancient Egyptians were known to perform sacred songs and dances for their gods during ritual ceremonies. So the idea of theater as a dramatic entertainment came much later because it often was used beforehand for these special festivals or these religious ceremonies. So they had a much heavier meaning in those societies than they do today. It's not like just going down to Broadway and going to see Wicked. It was a huge experience that the whole town would get together and go do for the weekend. I don't know if any of you know a musical called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, but it's a little bit of a story, more of a farce on Greek theater. And one of their first songs is Comedy Tonight. And they talk about a show that's happening in their town right there. And one of the lyrics is, tragedy tomorrow, comedy tonight. And that is exactly the way Greek culture worked with theater, is that one day they would see a comedy, and the next day they would often see a tragedy to balance it out, because it was all about learning about these stories. Oh, and not to mention, there was also a third category in Greek theater, and that was the satyr plays. And what does the word satyr make you all think about, huh? Well, for me, I can sketch you out what I think based off of some of my favorite books, like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So a satyr, to the best of my knowledge, I'm going to draw him with some curly, messy hair, has the head of a man, usually a man. I sometimes see satyrs as women too, so they're not gender specific. But they're no ordinary man. Yup, satyrs are a little different. Any of my mythological fans out there know what's the difference between a satyr and a regular person? Sometimes if I'm learning a new subject and I find that I'm having trouble paying attention or grasping the concept, I will absolutely ask questions. But sometimes I try to look at things a different way. Maybe draw it out, write out cue cards, something different for me. So, usually, they have the head of a man, but as you can see here, he's got some weird funky looking ears, right? Those aren't normal human ears. Our ears don't stick out like that at the top. And he's got these funny looking horns. That's because satyrs were often half men, half goat creatures. So the top half would be a man or a human, and then the bottom half would be that of a goat. So they would stand on two hind legs. You'll have to excuse my quick sketching. Draw his little tail. But they stood on two legs just like so with hooves, and they had little tails. Oops, little tails right there. You can actually see some in Fantasia. There's a sequence that is animated that it actually has Dionysus in it as well, but it has some Pegasi, and it has some satyrs and some centaurs. It's one of my favorite sequences. Check it out. But satyr plays were the last category of Greek plays, and the word satyr sounds and is spelled pretty much like the word satire. So that is what a satyr play was, friends. They were satire plays. Often at times a form of comedy was coming out of the fact that these heroes or people, kings and queens, were going through something pretty elaborate and maybe beyond a lot of people's belief, and probably pretty funny. So everybody loves a good laugh, so they had regular comedy plays, and then they had satire plays. And they would gather all together and commune in an area. Now, I can think of a couple places right now, still to this day, that there are people who gather together, usually once or sometimes even more times a week, to all watch some entertainment or sing, pray as we heard, exclaim. Think about it, my friends. You might be, or you used to, before this pandemic happened, participate in theater on a regular basis. I won't give you any hints because I know you are smart cookies out there, and I'm sure you can tell me exactly what examples I'm thinking about. We are just going to go back to reviewing our stage directions so that I know we all got them, because they are going to be super, super important later on, because we're going to get into actors and scenery and props, and so I want everyone to be able to speak the same language. And I'm going to be teaching you all a couple specific terms that we use for different movements that might happen on stage. Choreographers have one set of terminology based off of what type of dance they might show, whether it be ballet or jazz, tap, modern, Irish dancing, folk dancing. All types of dance have their own language, and so does theater, oddly enough. So let's do a quick review with our T-Rex friend on stage directions. And then I will show you with our two dinosaur buddies a couple different movements that we use in the theater often, or I have for blocking. I am sharing with all of you from experience that I have lived through and from the different sources of information that I was given during my schooling. But let's get back to Mr. T-Rex right here. So, T-Rex friend. Okay, friends, pop quiz. If I were to ask T-Rex to go up stage, and he's at the center of the stage right now, which direction would he go? Would he go down this way? Or would he go up this way? And that should have been a clue for all of you. Which way is upstage? Is it this way? Or is it this way? Well, those of you who said backwards are correct. Upstage is up towards the back, which means obviously then that downstage, the opposite of upstage, must be this way, down towards the audience. So up, upstage, down, downstage. Now, I know this is going to be the trickiest one because it used to slip me up all the time. Stage left and stage right is based off of the actor's directions facing the audience, not what the audience's directions are. So, if it's based off of our actor on stage, this direction is going to be stage right. Stage right is this way, to the right. And this is going to be stage left, to the left. Upstage, downstage, stage right, stage left. Yes, I know you all have this because I know you are all brilliant and amazing. And if you don't, no worries. We can go over it again a little later, or I'm sure I will reference it a lot the more we get into this activity and this topic. So, we were talking about specific movements that are made on stage. If I were to ask for my two actors to cross each other, what do you think they would be doing? What would signal a cross? Well, if I were to ask T-Rex to cross stage left, he would go this way. Yes, that is a cross, my friend. Usually you have to cross another actor or a large stage piece, but it's often at a diagonal. So this is Mr. Rex crossing the stage. However, you can see that our dinosaur friend right here is now blocked by Mr. T-Rex because I asked him to cross downward stage left. Woof! Lots of words. So, often we ask the other actor to counter upstage left. So, if my T-Rex actor were to cross down stage left, cross down stage left, I would ask my other dino actor to counter cross upstage right, so that when they move together and end up at their next spots, both of them can still be seen. Let me show you what that looks like on a flat stage. Woo! Okay, so Mr. T-Rex would cross down stage left, and our other dinosaur friend would counter cross up stage right so that he can be seen. So, we're going to write down those vocabulary cards. Cross and counter cross. So cross, that's sometimes symbolized by an X in shorthand, at least it has been for me in stage directions, but that's pretty much what one does is the X. That should help you remember what a cross is. And then, of course, a counter cross Oh my goodness, all the highlighting. I like to make my notes colorful so that I can remember them. I like doing any sort of neat tricks like that, or playing with dinos to help me remember things a little better. So a counter cross would be where I've highlighted right here. That would be that movement. While a cross, I should give you all arrows and lines so that this would make a lot more sense. Let me show you the redone version of my cross cue card. So cross is just one direction, usually at an angle, my friends. Oops, there we go, this way, at an angle. And then our counter cross is what you do when you're trying not to get blocked. And I know that sounds really confusing. So directions that are given to an actor is called blocking, but you don't want to be blocked on stage, which means that you're usually in a line together, and so often one person is blocking the other person, and you can't see this person back here, and they're acting their face off, and so is this person, but because of the way that they're standing and the way that you're sitting, this person, even though they're giving the performance of their life, cannot be seen. That is no good. That makes everyone sad. Wah, wah, sad friends. I'm so glad you all are allowing me to spend time with you and my dinosaur friends today to help explain one of my favorite things in the world, theater. So, we've talked about Dionysus, we've talked about tragedy or dramatic plays, we've talked about comedy or comedic plays, we talked a little bit about satyr plays or satire, and those are where the three genres that emerged during that time. However, I'm going to give you all a brief introduction to masks, which is our big activity for next week, and it was a huge part of ancient Greek theater. And that's because, my friends, at that time, unfortunately, like a lot of times, women were not allowed to be actors, so it was just men. And oftentimes, to sell that illusion, especially when there were so many men on stage, actors used masks. They used masks not only to portray themselves as women, but also as gods, important figureheads, animals, anything that could help sell the story a little bit better than just an actor trying to act like they look different than they do. We can see that especially in East theater traditions that have stemmed since ancient times until today. One example would be Japanese Noh theater. Japanese Noh theater still exists to this day, and we will go into the specifics of it next week, into the different types of masks that they use to put on their performances. Another Asian country that also still uses mask work would be China, and that would be Chinese opera. It is very elaborate, very fantastical, and oftentimes those performers will use masks that are shaped after traditional pieces that have been used for a long time, or they will paint the masks on their own faces. Well, now that definitely makes me think of something that's coming up soon that we all enjoy. That's a little bit spooky at the end of October. I'm starting to figure out that there's a lot more in common with theater and the rest of the world and the things that we enjoy than I thought. Mask work that is clearly used in ancient theater is still celebrated today. So much so that we still use it on holidays, days where we're not performing, but we just want to dress up and look like somebody different. Now, I would ask all of us, what does that mask make us do? How does it make us feel? How does it make us feel about other people when they have certain masks on? Well, for me, I know that for the longest time, I was afraid of clowns. And it didn't matter who you were, if I knew you or not, if your face was going to be painted like a clown, it was going to scare me and upset me, which is no good. I don't want to be scared. That's something that I don't find very pleasant at all. So that is a form of mask work, and it used to work so well on me that no matter who the person was in front of me, if they painted their face with that big white paint that acts as the base, and then those larger shapes that they put on their faces to either put focus towards their eyes or their lips, or maybe the big red nose that they wear or wore, well, I wasn't going to have a good time. And that is exactly why the Greeks used their masks, and so many other people use masks to this day. They want to invoke some sort of emotional response out of you, whether it be good or bad. Usually at times, I would say most performers want a good reaction out of you. However, I would say that that's usually different during Halloween time with scare actors. I would say that they probably want to scare you since it's Halloween and spooky time. But isn't that fascinating? We may look at our parents, guardians, grandparents, siblings, our next door neighbor, our best friend, our older sister, our younger sister, anybody with a different mask on or just with a different face, and it'll throw us in a loop. It'll change the way that we feel about that person. If you don't believe me, next time, try to see. Okay, I got an example for all of you. I was going to say try to see the next time if you have a mask laying around, or after we create our mask next week, to play around with people that you know with how does this mask make you feel where I put it on versus like me without my mask on. Well, what is a mask hero that we all know and love? Batman. I like Batman. I know a lot of you like Batman. If you don't, think about another superhero that has a mask. Iron Man has a mask. Captain America has a mask. Black Panther has a mask. Who else has masks? Harley Quinn. Catwoman. I'm sure there's more. I can't think of any more off of the top of my head. But think about any of those caped crusaders that we think about, those superheroes. And think about when they put their mask on. Oh, The Incredibles is another good one. And how they look kind of different. How even the people who know them the best, besides the people who they've told their secret, their superhero secret, know who they are. Most people don't, right? Like Batman versus Bruce Wayne. Most people in Gotham don't know that Batman is Bruce Wayne, even though they are the same person. And the only thing that's different between Batman and Bruce Wayne is that Batman is in a suit and his face is covered, besides his eyes, the bottom half of his nose, and his mouth. Which, if you're think about it, that's actually not covering a lot of parts of your face. You can still tell a lot of a person by just their eyes. Here, let me see if I can block out my face for you. Oh, I gotta fold that one. Can you still see it, tell a lot about me? Just by seeing my eyes and my mouth? Whoa. See, that kind of looks a little different, right? You have no idea what my face may look like, or how happy or sad I may be at something. And that's kind of interesting, right? So we will explore more of that next week, and how masks used in theater have caused emotional turmoil in us as audience members, where it be fear from something scary, or laugh because something's funny, or cry because something is sad. Well, in my last 10 minutes with you all, I do want to go over our cue cards that we wrote today, and our little project that we made together. Oh, and please make sure that you keep it handy because we will be building upon it because, as I said, we're going to be exploring all parts of the theater. So you've only made part of the stage. We still have the wings and the catwalk and the scenery and the actors and the costume. I can go on and on and on, but I will not because I know you will experience this with me. So, cue cards for all of my vocabulary folks and my folks who do better when they write down words. We learned the term thespian today. And thespian came from the original playwright that won a competition and possibly the original actor, Thespis. Thespian, which is a fancy word for actor. Upstage. Upstage is towards the back of the theater, as you can see in this diagram right here. So its opposite, downstage, would be towards the audience, or down. We have stage left and stage right, and that would be the actors right and left. We have what we call a cross, and that is usually when a person goes at a diagonal towards downstage or upstage in the opposite corner than they were. And what do we have besides the cross when there's another person on stage and we don't want them blocked so everybody can see them? We have a counter cross, as highlighted right here. And last but not least, we talked about catharsis! Yeah! And this feeling of catharsis that everybody liked to experience together at the Greek theater, which is why it was a huge experience that happened every weekend. Okay, now my review for my visual learners. So, if you built a box like me, we have our trusty actor friend here, T-Rex, and I'm going to move this flat for all of you so that you can see it while I move our actor friend. He is going to go downstage, he's going to go upstage, he's going to go to stage left, and then stage right. If you were to get a bird's eye view of that, that would be like so. Stage right, downstage, stage left, upstage. So in that sequence, you could pretty much make a square. But that is our stage directions, friends. And as you can see, I put some shorthand on here that I often have used in my own notes when I have been taking blocking notes from my directors. So I have put DN right here for down. I've put UP right here for up. SL is usually my shorthand for stage left, which means that SR is usually my shorthand for stage right. I'm so excited to share this with all of you today. I hope you had a good time on your Thursday Playful Learning with me here. Next week, as I gave you all a slight introduction about, and we talked a bit about when we were getting deeper into the history of Greek theater, is mask work. So next week, gather some cardboard, maybe some odds and ends that you have in your house that you might like to decorate with always. Ask your guardian or the adult in your house first to make sure that you can use that material, and we will be using scissors and hot glue too, so please make sure that they're around so that you do not burn yourself or hurt yourself accidentally. It would make me very, very sad. So next week, oh, I smiled during that. I meant very sad. Sorry guys, I don't know why I smiled. Must be tired. Well, I hope you all have directions drilled into your mind. If you do not, no worries. Remember, knowitall.org has a breakdown of wonderful, wonderful subjects that I love and adore. So check that out as a resource if you'd like to learn more. We will be coming live to you all again next Tuesday at 3:30 with Robert and Michael. And then next Thursday, I will be back with all of you for our Playful Learning Hour. And then, please don't forget, I want to tell you all about this incredible opportunity Not this upcoming weekend, but I believe next weekend. If not, it's the weekend after that. Why do I not have my calendar in front of me? But we have our cardboard challenge coming up. That's right. I don't know if any of you remember, but one Saturday I joined all of you on a lovely Saturday morning, and I made a TIE fighter out of cardboard. Now, the TIE fighter didn't end up being exactly the way I imagined, but it was still pretty spectacular, and I was able to fit inside of it. So my accomplishment was done. So join us, not this weekend, but next weekend or the one after that one, for our cardboard challenge that we will have. Of course, the ever amazing Kane will be with us, and he'll be showing us some amazing cardboard fun. And who knows, maybe yours truly might be in there too. Who knows? Who knows? I hope you all have a lovely, lovely rest of your Thursday. Have a great weekend. Please stay cool, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!